For small business owners listening, how can they tell the difference between someone who is digitally fluent versus someone who just knows how to use a few tools? Like when they're assessing or, figuring out where they land.
Yeah, I think that's probably like in three different spaces where this would be incredibly relevant, especially for a small business owner. There is the who you align with, meaning partner. And I think a lot of people like to sound immediately competent as fast as possible. So there's a lot of flex and name dropping on, I read these six things, so I'm going to go and use the buzz terminology. That almost always gets me a little concerned. The second thing is also proof is in the pudding. Are you showing me and are you telling me? So I'm a big fan of show me versus tell me. If I hear something that sounds good, apply, demonstrate, showcase, use case. It gives me the classic, Cal Poly's motto, the university I get the privilege to have been for almost, I don't know, we're celebrating 125 years, literally yesterday, same day. But 25 of those 125 are me in a faculty position. So there's a difference, but in this case, I just flex. Look, I'm a 25-year veteran, but am I good at what I do? So your question is, when the person on the other side is also willing to say, here are things I don't know yet, even if they're an expert, or here are things that I'm limited by, or here are things I'm concerned by. So first off, simple gauge. When the person starts to differentiate on artificial intelligence, that it's not a homogenistic term, but there's generative, analytical, predictable, and they start to actually use a certain adaptation. That's like saying, hey, OpenAI may have been an early adopter and was the first out of the gate, but they might be a good generalist. But maybe Anthropic is a good specialist for coding. Maybe Gemini is a good specialist for art. And so the person you're talking to across from you, you can't be good at everything. So if you're looking at something specific, benchmark also what you know. So when you're talking to the person, uh, if you don't know how good the answer is, you didn't ask a good question. So you may want to go and ask something that they can fill in with something that you're an expert in, so that you're pressure testing as if you're truth checking the other person's answer with things that have value to you. Because otherwise you're just wooed by the novelty as opposed to be able to gauge an answer.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. Let's talk a little bit about AI strategy and implementation. As we know, there's a lot of hype around AI right now. From your perspective, what's the biggest disconnect between AI excitement and AI reality?
Yeah. I think I just want to make sure that one of the things that can happen is when I get really passionate, I want to say a lot of really important things. To follow the story, I think it's important to consider the journey that artificial intelligence has taken. So I think if I were to be a mid-level to an upper level firm, so it means I have in between 10 to 100 or between 1,000 plus organizational members. So let's assume for the time being, your big company. The first thing you associate with artificial intelligence is we need to contact our information technology division. Our IT department needs to go and deploy this tool or this product. And we better do a good job. And since we're talking about security and the title of our show, we better not mess up that this is actually going to go and give some kind of pinhole and access to people that could cause a problem. So in its root, let's also probably limit it or even just make it illegal for everybody, because if in doubt, might as well just make it illegal. And it's bad and it's not a good idea. So by root of origin, that's set in a domain of individuals that are responsible for deploying a tool by its nature, like Microsoft Word, like any other derivative. We're going to go and use a technology like a calculator that gets added to the arsenal of the tool chest of an employee. Then we had a bit of a shift when we get to the point of, oh, this is actually reflective of a usage. And the difference here is that we suddenly look at, oh, it's not really an information technology solution. Ooh, this may be swing the pendulum the exact opposite direction, entirely about talent and people and human resources. And then we got to the point of how do we maybe overhaul how we run the place? How do we maybe organize ourselves from a human resources perspective? Now, if you're a small business owner, you're also wearing both of those hats. You get to be the person that first got to go and see if you would want to install it. Then you get to figure out how you go and train your people. And the pendulum swinging the other direction, like anything else that's extreme, we went from it is purely functional to it is completely applied. And in most environments, you're going to look at it going, two big problems, because oppositions are probably that the healthy part is somewhere in the middle. And I think that's where we're starting to settle, where we're going, okay, human resources starting to feel a little overwhelmed with well, we don't really have all the technical skills, and technology is overwhelmed with we don't really have all the human resources skills. So it makes it a merged component.